had the great fortune of being at the UN, attending the World Youth Assembly as part of the celebrations for the UN's 25th anniversary in 1970. Yes, I was a bit younger then. Fast forward to 1995 for the 50th anniversary, and I was right there working at the UN as part of the team launching the UN website. Fast forward again to today, and here I am celebrating the UN's 75th anniversary with two distinguished senior UN officials. With us now is UN Under-Secretary-General for Global Communications, Melissa Fleming. Under-Secretary-General, you've been at the head of the communications teams at the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, and the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. You've also been featured at TED Talks, and you have a book, A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea. Welcome to Rotary.
Great to be with you, Mahbub. Thank you very much for having me.
Madam Under-Secretary-General, recently, under your leadership, the UN launched two new campaigns, Share Verified and Only Together. Could you share with us highlights of these two campaigns?
Yeah, maybe just a second on the backdrop, because we launched these two campaigns when COVID-19 became a pandemic. What was clear that what we were facing, not just a global public health crisis, but we were facing a communications crisis as well. What we needed in order to contain and control this pandemic was global trust more than ever before. But we are in a landscape that is polluted, a media landscape that is polluted with misinformation. It was clear to us that we needed to get out into that space with good information, trusted information, based on science. So we created this initiative called Verified, and this initiative was to flood the internet with science-based communication, but attractive and engaging pieces of content that is optimized for social media and traveling also in those spaces where people are being, faced with misinformation that is distorting the truth. So that's the one thing. So we launched this Verified campaign to really penetrate the internet with how to protect yourself and your communities against the pandemic, and most recently also the benefits of the COVID-19 vaccine. And that comes to now our other campaign, which is called Only Together. This was launched because actually the Secretary General predicted this, and so did Dr. Tedros from WHO, that we were going to be quickly facing a situation where the rich nations of the world were vaccinating their citizens like crazy, and the poor nations couldn't see a vaccine in sight or in their near future. This played out, unfortunately, even though there is a fantastic facility that was established, a first of its kind in history, called the COVAX facility, that is there to supply poor and low-income countries with the vaccines, but it's underfunded and undersupplied. So Only Together is basically a public campaign to really raise awareness about the need to vaccinate everyone, everywhere, because only together can we come out of this crisis. The vaccine knows the virus knows no borders, and the vaccine can help us see a future where we can all, move on and do the things that we love.
What would the UN like to achieve via these two campaigns?
Well, with the first one, Verified, we had two strands. One was to provide really solid, good public, information for the public, so that they know, okay, the United Nations is behind this. It's WHO information, it's UNICEF information, it's UN information. We can trust this. It's understandable. It's engaging. I got it. Okay. This is what we want people. We want to establish the UN as that place for trusted information where people can turn to in the languages they speak and through the influencers who, kind of speak to them. So that's one strand. The other is that we're fighting misinformation. So we're doing it in two ways. One, we're teaching people about how misinformation travels. So we've recruited thousands and thousands of what we call information volunteers around the world. They're kind of digital first responders who take our content and share it in their social media feeds, they also are educating themselves through our information on what is misinformation, how it travels, how to spot it, and how to stop the spread. We've also been creating this social norm out there that we hope is ringing in people's ears when they see information online that makes their heart palpitate and make them feel like, oh, I found a miracle cure, or I don't know if this is true, let me share it with. And that seems to be the instinct. And so the campaign, that the norm is pause, take care before you share. We've been spreading, we've reached 1 billion people with this pause message in languages and countries all over the world. And we do have evidence that it has influenced behavior and that people are thinking twice before they share. We're also working with the social media platforms, and we've seen significant policy changes. We've seen significant moves to remove misinformation, and most recently to remove content that is leading people to fear the vaccine when actually they should be seeing it as their way out to protect themselves and their communities.
Great. How can Rotary and its worldwide network of Rotarians help with these campaigns?
Well, we would love every Rotarian to consider joining us on shareverified.com. There you can sign up to become an information volunteer, and you'll receive an email from us every day, 5 days a week, and a really engaging email, I think an informative one. And with some content that you know maybe you could share in your own feeds or just talk about with your friends and colleagues. That's one way. Also, I think that just really understanding, in particular, this message of we're only safe when everyone is safe around the vaccine. I think it's really important to talk about in our communities the importance of vaccine equity. All of us should go and get our vaccines if we have the opportunity, but we should also be thinking about people like us in other parts of the world who don't, and advocating for sharing, for our governments to share doses, to donate to the COVAX facility, and really to think about getting the entire world vaccinated so that we can really have a chance to overcome this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. The UN and Rotary have so much in common. What do you see as the possible areas where our two organizations can work together for the common good?
Well, I think, all of us believe you're a global organization, we're a global organization. I think Rotarians understand that that we need to work together all over the world to solve global problems, that problems, we have problems that exist in communities, but many of them are quite universal, and that it's really, we're just a better world with global cooperation. So I think just continuing to perpetuate this international collaboration, I think is so important. And really, I think our values are very similar. Mm-hmm. And we need more than ever, people who just believe in making this world a better place, a more inclusive world, a more equal world, and a more just world.
You've been in the information field for most of your professional career. Do you think the UN has been effective in telling its story?
That's a really good question. Not always, unfortunately. I think the UN story is absolutely compelling. And when people really learn about it, they say, wow. But there's a long way to go for us to really tell the UN story, and it's complex. The UN is made up of so many different 8 different agencies. We also have the peace and security side, which is here in New York at the Security Council, and this is often equated with inaction, or member states not being able to solve the world's problems, and wars keeping going on. So I think that's one story, but then we need to focus on, and this is what we're trying to do, this is the new communication strategy that I've introduced at the UN. let's talk about the problems that are facing the world. Let's present the world and our publics with what's wrong with the world. But the UN needs to be about prescribing how we can fix it, and demonstrating where we already are making that difference. And we are, I think, very often. I mean, I came from working for 2 UN agencies that were, IAEA, really working for, preventing nuclear calamity. Sometimes that's a story that's really hard to tell when you're preventing things through your inspections and nuclear security and nuclear safety. And then working for the UN Refugee Agency. I mean, that was a very challenging story to show how an agency like that is providing protection to millions and millions of people around the world. They just became statistics. So my philosophy is, there's a saying, statistics are human beings with the tears dried off. There's a reason for that, because when you present people with too many statistics, with mass suffering, the human behavioral natural reaction is to feel numb and just to feel like, oh my, I hope somebody is dealing with that problem. That's awful. So the way to really build that bridge of empathy to people is through storytelling. And that's what I've been trying to introduce. We have to provide the facts. We have to provide the data and the science, but we also have to build a bridge to people's hearts.
Very good. Thank you. A few quick questions. When you think of Rotary, what comes to mind?
I think what comes to mind is people who want to give back, people who care about the world and their communities, and want to actually take some action and to be involved.
What has been your most memorable UN moment?
I think the moment when I met Doa al-Zamal, the young Syrian refugee woman who was the subject of my book, A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea. And she told me and trusted me with her story of how she survived the worst shipwreck, one of the worst, I think it may be one of the worst, on the Mediterranean Sea, where 500 of her fellow passengers drowned, including the love of her life, her fiancé. And when she was rescued after 4 days and 4 nights on the water, she had 2 little children on her chest. One was a baby, 18 months old, and they were not her own. She managed to save one of them. And for me, her story told the struggle of everything the UN was trying to work for, to stop the war that drove so many refugees from her home, to protect the refugees like Doa who were in neighboring countries, but who found still the need to take a risk on those boats across the Mediterranean Sea because they wanted a future. So the UN is also about that, fighting for the future, trying to provide protection, but also give people the hope and the chance to thrive. And so, yeah, that was the story that I wanted to tell the world, because it's a story of human suffering, but also resilience. And I believe the UN is about alleviating human suffering and trying to give people the chance to live in dignity and live in peace.
A very moving story. Finally, what's your favorite UN hashtag?
Right now it is #OnlyTogether. And I think it really says a lot. It says, it's right now being applied to vaccine equity, and only together can we get back to the things that we love if everybody can get a vaccine. But I think it can be applied to almost everything. Only together can we overcome the ravages of climate change through collective climate action. Another example. And only together can we help solve the wars that have been driving so many people from their homes and causing so much misery. So you could really apply it to multilateralism and also perhaps to the way Rotary works and its mission.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would your message to our Rotarians out there be?
that everybody can do something to affect change. And sometimes it feels like it's quite overwhelming when you look at all of the problems of the world. And especially now we've been faced with a pandemic that has hit all of us in so many ways. And it's impacted people, not just in their health and in the health of the people they love, but it's impacted communities, economies, people's livelihoods, and people's mental health. So I think anything that anyone can do to help other people right now is going to have a ripple effect around the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Under-Secretary-General Melissa Fleming, Head of UN Global Communications. She's also the host of the award-winning podcast, Awake at Night. Listen to her podcasts wherever you get your podcasts or via the UN website at the address you see on the screen. And now for an official thank you, Madam Under-Secretary-General, here is Rotary District 7230 District Governor Mary Shackleton.
Madam Under-Secretary-General, thank you so much for making time to be with us today. We enjoyed your responses to Mabib's questions. Thank you, thank you. Audience, please check out shareverified.com and the hashtag #OnlyTogether. IPDG Mabib, thank you so much for continuing to connect Rotary with the world. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take action with the United Nations today.